Sometimes we make plans with, eat with, spend time with people we think have our best interests at heart, people we think care about us, but that may not always be the case. This man is said to have been assassinated by his friends over a simple disagreement. This is his story. Once upon a time, there was a young family. This family was living their life, enjoying their life, doing the best with what they had until something happened and they had to pack up their things and run because their lives were in danger. They left their house, left their livelihood, left their friends, left what everything they had known and ran. Now within this family there was a young boy. When this family ran to another place because of the unrest in their own land, they became refugees. Now, because this family have become refugees, we can guess that they probably didn't have an easy life. This boy had a dream. Like everybody, like every young child, like you have a dream. This boy had a dream, and his dream was that one day he wanted to return back to his homeland. He wanted to go back to the place where he was born. But it wasn't easy. As he grew up, he started following a path that would lead him to his destination, leading to his dream. His dream made him become a fearless warrior, and he fought in many wars. He joined rebel groups and fought for the liberation of many people. He led with courage, he was fearless, and to cut the long story short, he became loved by a lot of people and a lot of people followed him. One day, he took his great army and traveled back to where he was born. But just as soon as his dreams were about to be actualized, just as soon as his dream was in his grasp, something unexpected happened. The story of this boy, though it's a sad one, is a true life story, and it reminds me of the story of someone so many of us may know. His life is just like that of Moses. Moses had a dream, Moses had a vision. Moses went through, he almost actualized that vision. He went through a path, like he almost actualized the vision, and he saw the promised land. He saw the promised land. Well, guess what? Moses did not step into the promised land. That is the same story of this guy. He led his people into battle. He saw the promised land, that is his hometown, but he didn't see his dream come into completion. So, if you can guess who this African hero we'll be talking about today is. Fred Rwigyema was born in Rwanda in a place called, the name is going to be on the screen because I don't know how to pronounce the name and I don't want to spoil it. His family was part of the Tutsi ethnic group. Now in Rwanda there are three ethnic groups. We have the Tutsi, the Hutu and the Twa. Now the Hutus are the largest ethnic group in Rwanda. They make up about 85% of the population in Rwanda, and historically they are primarily agriculturalists and they make up most of the peasant class of Rwanda. The Tutsis are the second largest ethnic group in Rwanda. They make up about 14% of Rwanda's population, and historically they are known to be cattle herders. They also held higher social status in the pre-colonial period. During the colonial era, Tutsis were favored by the Belgian colonial authority, leading to increased tensions between the Hutu ethnic group and the Tutsi ethnic group. So the Belgians initially favored the Tutsi ethnic group for administrative roles and the likes, but after the World War II, they began to favor the Hutu ethnic group, and this now increased the tension between these two ethnic groups. Stay with me because it's important. This class is important. Get it? Remember that I said there are three ethnic groups in Rwanda, or three major ethnic groups in Rwanda: the Hutu, the Tutsi, and the Twa. The Twa, that's the last ethnic group. They make up about 1% of the population in Rwanda. They were said to have been like the original inhabitants of Rwanda, like the people who first come, we first sit down on top Rwanda were the Twa people. But historically, they were known to be hunters and gatherers. Before the colonial rule, things in Rwanda were kind of interesting because though they were ethnic groups, the lines weren't as rigid as they later became. The Tutsi then held more power and more wealth because they were generally cattle herders, and holding cattle in that time was actually a big deal. Now, the Hutus, who were farmers, well, like I said, they were like in the middle ladder, like social, yeah, economically and socially, they were like between the Huts. It was the Tutsis and then the Hutus, right? Yeah. But then, like I said, it wasn't that the lines weren't that rigid. So if a Hutu became wealthy and now owned a lot of cattle, they could now become they could become Tutsi. And if a Tutsi lost his cattle and lost his wealth, he could become Hutu. Now, I'm not from Rwanda. If you're from Rwanda or you know better and you're listening to this and you don't agree, or there's something that I'm mixing up, please leave your comments in the comment section below and let us know. So then it wasn't strictly about ethnicity, it was more about social class and wealth.
It's all about the money.
Then came colonization. First the Germans took control and then later the Belgians came in. Things started getting complicated when the Belgians started treating the Tutsis as an elite group and giving them administrative roles, and the Hutus, who held majority, who were the majority, like in numbers, they were more than the Tutsis, became disgruntled. They didn't like that, and so tension started building. Things started getting tight. Everybody's head was getting strong, and the Hutsis were seen as the lower class. Fast forward to the 1950s, where a lot of African countries were pushing for independence. In Rwanda, things were still hot. The Hutu political movement was growing because they wanted majority rule. Of course, they were the majority. But the Tutsis didn't want that to happen because they still wanted to hold their power, which is also understandable.
We want what we want!
Then, in November 1959, when they thought it couldn't get any worse, things became even hotter. Everywhere was tight, tension day, everywhere hot.
Trust, it's about to go down.
Suddenly, hundreds of Tutsis were being killed, and thousands of them ran from Rwanda to places like Uganda and Burundi. Before Uncle, if it's you, will you not run? When you see that they are killing your people, will you not run? No, stay there now, wait. Anyway, this was the beginning of what was called the Hutu Peasant Revolution, which lasted from 1951 to 1961. It was basically the end of the Tutsi domination and an ethnic divide that will haunt Rwanda for years. The ruling king then, King Kigeli V, was of Tutsi ethnicity. So when he was uprooted from the seat, a lot of people from the Tutsi ethnicity ran, and Fred's family was one of those, and they ended up in Uganda in a refugee camp. Fred was only 3 years old when his parents relocated from Mukeranze village to Uganda. Fast forward to when Fred was done with high school in 1976, he joined a rebel group called Fronsa or Fronasa. Fronsa or Fronasa, anyone, which was led by a guy named Yoweri Museveni, who is now the present president of Uganda. Museveni's brother, Salem Saleh, was also Fred's friend. So Fred was pretty tight with these guys. It was around this time that Fred started calling himself Fred Rwigyema. Fred was a very adventurous guy. Later that year, he traveled to Mozambique and joined a group called Frelimo. These Frelimo guys were battling the Portuguese to free Mozambique from their colonial rule. They were a rebel group, so you can see now that Fred was becoming a known freedom fighter. In 1979 also, Fred joined the Ugandan National Liberation Army, which with the help of Tanzanian forces helped to remove Idi Amin, Ugandan's dictator. But Fred did not stop there. He did not stop there. He also joined the National Resistance Army, NRA, Museveni's group, to remove another dictator called Milton Obote in the Ugandan Bush War. In this Ugandan Bush War, Fred met a lot of people who would later go to play big roles in Rwanda's future, like Paul Kagame, who is Rwanda's present president. After NRA won in 1986 and Museveni became Uganda's president, Fred was promoted to Deputy Defense Minister or Deputy Minister of Defense. But even with that big title, he didn't stay in the office. He preferred to be in the front lines, fighting for what he believed in. So he decided to be in northern Uganda, helping the government deal with rebel forces. Good guy, right? You can see that this our guy, he gets sense. Get it. I get it. I get it. So you must get it. Fred was loved by his soldiers. He was known as a charismatic and respected leader. They even called him Mungu Wavita, known as God of War. Hey! I mean, if they name somebody God of War, does it not mean that that person is dangerous? I wouldn't want to meet him in the battlefield because guess what? He will finish you. He will kill you. He will scatter you. Everything. Like I said, Mungu Wavita in Swahili means God of War. He was named God of War or called God of War not only because of his battle prowess, but because he managed to avoid war crimes, which was a very difficult thing to do for someone in his position. Besides all the fame that Fred had garnered, he wanted more. If you remember the story I told before we got real deep into Fred's story, I mean, that story is Fred's story, but if you remember, I said he had a dream, and Fred's dream was to help the Rwandan exiles go back to their homeland. So, in keeping with his dream, in 1990, he led the Rwandan Patriotic Force to overthrow the Rwandan government. On October 1st, 1990, Fred led about 10,000 soldiers who had split from NRA and launched an invasion on northern Rwanda. This move kicked off the Rwandan Civil War. This group will later be known as, that's the group, the 10,000 soldiers with Fred Rwigyema, will later be known as the RPF, Rwandan Patriotic Force. They chose October 1st because it was close to the Ugandan Independence Day, which was October 9th. Now, this was a strategic move because they didn't want to draw too much attention. They wanted it to look like they were part of the military parade, so they wouldn't draw so much attention from the main Ugandan army. Smart, Abby.
Very interesting, very intelligent fellow.
Now you see that our guy is a smart guy. He's a smart guy. Not only is he strategic, not only is he a war god, he's also intelligent. We live for it. We love it. Everything was going fine. Everything was sweet. But shortly after they invaded Rwanda, things turned tragic. According to some accounts, including a historian called Gerard, Peter Bayingana, one of Fred's own generals, was involved in an argument with him over battle strategies just days into the Rwandan Civil War. Sadly, 2 days into the war, Fred Rwigyema was shot in the head and killed. He was shot at a hill called Yabwenshogozi Hill, but his death was kept a secret because they didn't want it to affect the morale of the soldiers. The official statement by Kagame's government was that Fred was killed by a stray bullet. However, the historian Gerard, after a lot of digging and an eyewitness account, said that Fred was actually shot by Peter Bayingana because of the argument that they had a few days into the Civil War. Let's talk a little bit about Peter Bayingana. Who is he? Where is he from? And how come he was able to shoot such a man as Fred Rwigyema? Peter Bayingana was one of the key figures in Rwandan Patriotic Force, and he played a big role in Rwandan Civil War. Like Fred, Bayingana was part of the National Resistance Army in Uganda, and he fought in the Ugandan Bush War alongside Yoweri Museveni and Fred Rwigyema. Another thing that tied them together was both Fred Rwigyema and Peter Bayingana were both Tutsi refugees, and both of them hoped to return back to Rwanda. After Rwigyema's death, Peter Bayingana, alongside another man named Chris Buyenyezi, took over leadership of the RPF force. However, again, their leadership did not last for long because Peter and Chris were also murdered about 3 weeks after Fred was murdered. And some accounts say they were murdered on the same day and at the same place where Fred was murdered. Talk about something strange. Something
so strange.
Some reports suggest that Peter and Chris were also killed due to some conflict in the RPF, but some say that it's due to combat in the government forces. Now, what makes this series of events stranger is that Peter Not only Peter, but Chris also was suspected for the death of Fred. Now, do you suspect what I'm suspecting and what other people have been suspecting for many years? Many people, I know I've been saying many people claim, but it's history. Many people feel like Peter and Chris were murdered as part of the cover-up for Fred's death. Gang, 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 gang. Gang, gang, gang. Conspiracy at its best. Show me an African history, like show me something that looks like a movie. If not this one. If not this story looks like something from a movie. So they killed Fred, and now after doing, you know how it is now in all these movies, after you've done somebody's bidding, they will now feel like, okay, I'm going to kill you also so that your mouth will be sealed. Like, nothing like I will not tell anybody. Nothing like your secret is safe with me. Oh, this one is, it dies with you, because if you're dead, nobody can hear it from you. You get it? So, cover up. President Yoweri Museveni was kept in the dark about Fred's death for over 2 weeks until he returned to Uganda. If you remember, Salem Saleh, that is President Museveni's brother, and President Museveni were Fred's friends. President Museveni had traveled to the United States of America on September 27th and returned to Uganda on October 10th, 1990. That's days after Fred had been killed. President Museveni claims that he had a premonition of the tragedy only days after Fred had been killed. In the second edition of his book, Sowing the Mustard Seed, on page 280, Museveni wrote that he pities those who say there is no God. So if you are part of those people that say there is no God, President Museveni pities you. I pity you too. He said, I know that he is there, not because of what the bishops and their juniors keep saying, but because of my personal experiences. One of what I regard as God's message happened to me on my way back from the USA, following the entry into Rwanda by the RPF. Museveni, who has held onto the presidency for close to 40 years, wrote, I had a series of European trips that had been arranged to follow my work at the UN and in Washington. Our visit was to Denmark, where we arrived and stayed in one high-rise hotel whose name I do not remember. As usual, when we visit, our hosts take us on trips. I think we were driving towards a farm or something like that, together with Janet, who is the first lady. Janet was in the back of the car when, on account of fatigue because of hectic programs, I started dozing off. All of a sudden, he shared, I startled from my brief sleep by seeing in a dream, or was it a vision, a shining knife. Standing behind Janet as she sat facing the other way was a man. He was aiming the knife at her breast as if he intended to cut it off. Somebody trying to cut off Janet's breast? My mind straight away went to our young children, especially the girls, Natasha, Patience, and Diana, who used to commute from Entebbe to Kampala. Something bad may have happened to the children or was about to happen to them, I thought in my mind. I did not, however, tell Janet, nor did I try to stop the trip to the farm. In those days, there were no mobile phones. I, therefore, took the first opportunity to go back to the hotel and telephoned Kampala in order to find out what was happening to the children. He wrote, nothing wrong had happened to the children. Even Muhozi at Budo was alright. Who then was this that was trying to cut off Janet's breasts? Obviously, breast meant motherhood. I only found out when I arrived back in Entebbe after a prolonged trip. It was Rwigyema that I had obviously dreamed about. In fact, by that time, Rwigyema had long died, but our people had not wanted to tell me. Before he died, Fred was married to Janet Rwigyema and they had 2 children. Eric and Tagisa Rwigyema. Janet spent 2 years devastated about her husband's death. He never told her he was going to invade Rwanda, but sadly, he went and he didn't come back. She spent 2 years devastated over his death, and after mourning, she started a pharmacy somewhere in Kampala. The reason for this channel is not just to share the stories of African heroes, but to bridge the gap from where we are to where we want to be. Experience is no longer the best teacher. What I mean by that is your experience is no longer the best teacher. Knowledge is, and you gain knowledge by hearing about other people's stories, by reading, by learning. Right? Why do you have to learn that? Why do you need experience to teach you that if you put your hand in fire, it will burn you? Why? When someone can tell you, I put my hand in fire and it burns me. As much as you can, learn from other people's stories, learn from other people's experiences. One thing I want to take out of this Rwigyema story is when he was pretty young when he died. He died at 33. And if you've lost a loved one before, you know that death is no respecter of any man. You can drop dead anytime. I've learned it, and even recently, I experienced the death of a very close friend of mine, and he brought it home again that, hey, you better do whatever it is that you want to do. Like Fred, he took the step. He had the dream in his mind that I want to liberate my people. I want to change the story of my people. I want my people to be able to go back home and live in peace, right? And he walked towards it. You have to ask yourself, what is your dream? Are you living towards your dream, or you're just living because you can drop dead at any time? You can go out and you will not come back. And that's just the truth. Fred tried his best. He started, but he didn't see the fulfillment. Like he saw the promised land. He put his feet on the promised land, but he didn't taste the promise. Do you understand? Oh, I like that. I like that. But he didn't taste the promise. Regardless, we are learning, or we know of him today because of the steps that he took. We know about him today because he chased after his goals. He chased after his dreams. If you don't chase after your goals, if you don't chase after your dreams, when you're gone, what will be remaining? What will people remember you for? What will be left of you? Do you understand? Nobody expects to die when they do. I'm sure Fred did not see himself dying in the war. Maybe he thought about it, but he probably thought he would go and come. And maybe that's why he didn't even tell his wife that he was going to invade. He felt like, okay, when I go and come back, I will tell her that, babe, I don't go, I don't come. We now have Rwanda, but they got Rwanda without him. So start whatever it is that you want to start. Right? The people will tell their stories today. We tell their stories because they started something. And their dream was big enough that it touched the lives of other people. Do you get? It touched the lives of other people. So start your dream. That's what I would say. Start working on your dream. Start working towards your goals. One other thing you can learn is, apart from chasing your dreams, is resilience and commitment. Fred was a child that lived in a refugee camp, and whatever challenges that he faced while living in that camp, while growing up, he didn't let it impact him so much that he took on a woe is me mentality and felt like this is all I can ever become. I can never become anything better than this. I can never become anything great. So whatever you're going through now, have the mentality that is only for a phase. It will pass, and hold your dreams close to your chest. Those are the things that will put fire in your guts and make you work hard and make you push hard. So don't give up, okay? Leadership and sacrifice is another thing we can learn from Fred. We saw that Fred was a leader that was loved by a lot of people, to the extent that they named him God of War. And a lot of people followed him to go and fight for his country. In areas where you are a leader, how are you leading? Are people excited that you're around, or are people always looking for the opportunity for you to go? Are you the kind of leader that people cannot talk? They know they drink water drop cup when you day, or you're the kind of person that people can relate to, people can share their stories with, people can talk to? Think about it, because one day, even though you're a leader, one day you will need people's help. Even as Fred was fighter, a warrior, he still needed people to fight his battle with him. So check yourself, like look at yourself and be sure, like ask yourself, what kind of leader am I? Am I the kind of leader that who can sacrifice for? Another thing I would say is beware of internal conflicts. Wherever you are, always watch your back. I will not be me if I don't see it. Watch your back. Always check the temperature in the room. Whatever room you're in, check the temperature. Is it still cool or is the temperature going high, high, high? Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end of this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to write down the goal, even if not in the comment section, write down a goal that you follow through, not the one that you just write though, the one that you follow through with actionable steps that you take to achieve it. Okay, if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Kike. I tell stories about African heroes, and the African heroes are not just politicians, so fear not. Okay, yeah. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. If you got to the end of this video, just know that I am rooting for you. If you did not get to the end, it's not as if I'm not rooting for you, but I'm rooting for you like this. I'm rooting for you like this, like this, like this, like this. When you go to the end of this video, I'm rooting for you like this. Okay? And you can do it. Believe in yourself. Forget about fear, imposter syndrome, and all that. Don't let those things hold you down, okay? Just do what you need to do, and one day, somebody will tell you your story as well, and you'll be a hero to someone. So don't give up, okay? Until next time.